I'd like to call the Monday, April 22nd, 2019 Blue Springs Planning Commission meeting to order, and if I could ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening and those watching, and I'd also like to welcome our new pro tem, Councilman Ron Fowler. So you'll be joining us now, so thank you for being here. Glad to have you. Let me go through the agenda this evening. We have the consent agenda. Item 2 is the public hearing for the amendment to the concept plan for Edgewater. Number 3 is the public hearing conditional use permit for Verdad. I don't know if I said that right, self-storage. Number 4 is a public hearing for Blue Springs Marine, followed by number 5, public hearing conditional use permit for Blue Springs Marine. Number 6 is the planned unit development final plan for Edgewater at Chapman Farms. 7 is the site plan design review for Verdad, self-storage, they'll correct me. Number 8, final plat for Extra Space, Highway 7. Number 9 is the site plan design review for, again, Blue Springs Marine, followed by other business and then adjournment. So with that, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I move that the minutes from the April 8th meeting of the Planning Commission be approved as submitted by staff.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. Now we'll go to the public hearings. We have quite a few, so I'm going to read the instructions one time. I'll open the public hearings. I'll call for exhibits from our city attorney. The staff will make their presentation. Then I'll call for the applicant to come make theirs. And we'll call for witnesses in favor and those opposed, followed by bringing it back up for any general discussion by the commissioners. I'll close the public hearing and we'll vote and we'll make our recommendation. Okay? So I'll open the first public hearing and for the amendment to the amended planned unit development concept plan for Edgewater. And if the city attorney please read staff conditions or exhibits.
Madam Chairman, I offer into the record the following exhibits. Exhibit 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on April 6, 2019. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, are we going to go ahead and hear this in number 6?
We are, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wright, thank
All right,
you.
thank you, Chairman Banks. And Commissioners, before this evening are 2 requests related to Edgewater at Chapman Farms, which is located west of Southwest 7 Highway, north and south of Southwest Green Meadow Drive. The PUD concept plan for this development was approved by the City Council on March 4th. The purpose of both requests is regarding the architectural design of the proposed houses only. No other aspects of the PUD concept plan or final plan are up for review or discussion this evening. The first request is an amended PUD concept plan, which is to amend condition number 10 of approval by the City Council, which was approved by ordinance. Condition number 10 requires that all front elevations of each single-family house include masonry and that additional design elements such as shutters shall be provided on some front elevations. The applicant is requesting a modification to that condition to allow flexibility in the building architecture requirements so that not all houses have to have masonry. On the screen are some of the revised renderings that have been submitted by the applicant. In the original PUD concept plan, the staff report, staff did recommend several enhancements to the houses to offset the reduction in lot sizes and increases in density. The staff recommendations within the staff report were more specific than the approved conditions. As part of this requested amendment to condition number 10, staff has reviewed the revised building elevations that have been submitted. As you can see on the screen, there are a total of 12 elevation options that have been provided by the applicant, each with a mix of building materials including stone, lap siding, and batten board siding. Additional design elements that were requested by staff have been provided, including shutters, brackets, additional lighting, and garage door enhancements on the front elevations, which staff believes meets the intent of that original condition. However, the requirement that all front elevations have masonry has not been met, with 4 elevations not having masonry, which are the top 4 on the screen. The middle row has 100% masonry around the garage door, and then the bottom 4 have a 3 to 4 foot wall of masonry at the base of the garage. Additional streetscape renderings have been provided by the applicant to give an idea of how a typical streetscape would look with the mix of building materials. This was also coupled with some additional enhancements of the color palette, as opposed to the first concept plan that was largely a mix of white, gray, and black colors. So they've added some additional color on there, as well as a mix of masonry and building materials and the other design elements. Staff believes that the changes will provide more variation in the building design and visual interest, both to homes with and without masonry. Therefore, staff is supportive of reducing the requirements that all homes have masonry to only a majority of homes being required to have masonry. Staff also recommends that this revised condition and the condition in general only apply to the smaller lot homes that are proposed on the north side of Southwest Green Meadow Drive, and not on the larger lot homes that will be developed to the south, which were 52-foot wide lots that are more standard for the Meadows subdivision. So these 5 homes here would be the general style that would be constructed on the south lots. In reviewing the PUD concept plan review criteria, only criteria 1. Get back to the staff report. Only criterion 1 is applicable to the architectural review, in which staff does believe that the intent of the PUD regulations is still met by achieving a high-quality development with enhanced architecture and aesthetics. The second request is for a PUD final plan, which is essentially the same application as the amended PUD concept plan regarding the architecture. A second PUD final plan is required to be submitted for review and approval prior to the final plat approval for the final development plan. The second PUD final plan will cover the final development plan, landscaping, and amenities. The Planning Commission is being asked to review the PUD final plan prior to the amended PUD concept plan being reviewed by the City Council. And we have included a condition for approval with that. Staff has added the second condition. Let me bring that up for you. The second condition in the staff report, that approval of the PUD final plan is subject to any conditions or changes approved by the City Council for the amended PUD concept plan. If the amended PUD concept plan request to amend condition number 10 is denied by the City Council, then the architectural design must meet the original condition number 10 approved as part of the Edgewater Chapman Farms PUD concept plan. Staff recommends approval of the amended PUD concept plan subject to the 3 conditions in the concept plan, and the PUD final plan subject to the 5 conditions in the staff report. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner?
This may not be a question for you, and it might be a question for the applicant. As going back to our discussion when we approved this before, was there any discussion at all about staggering the size of the setbacks on these houses to provide a little bit more variation and possibly reverting some of the floor plans so it's not door garage, door garage, door garage, door garage all the way down the street, which is what I'm seeing in this rendering?
Yeah. Staff has not had any additional discussion with the applicant on that specific request. I'll let them respond to that. And if that's something that there's interest in, that could be looked at with the second PUD final plan, since that lays out more of the development plan and the individual design for each lot.
So the second thing we're looking at tonight.
Yeah, so, well, tonight is just for the architecture, but if there's interest in having variations in setbacks and what side the garage is on, that could be looked at with the second PUD final plan as well, as a condition with that. But the applicant may be able to answer address some of those questions this evening.
Thank you.
Anything else from staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward? You'll state your name and you'll need to be sworn in.
Vincent Walker.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your name
Vincent Walker,
and your address?
11708 East 87th Street, Raytown, Missouri,
Okay.
64138. So,
And who are you with?
I'm sorry, Summit Homes.
Summit Homes, okay. You just have to get this all down, thank you.
So, briefly, what I'd like to add to what Matt's talked about is that the intent all along was to work with the city as these plans evolved. We had a handful of meetings, 3 or 4, however many, and a good portion of this was directed specifically at the architecture. And so, through my own ignorance, and I'll claim the ignorance on this, is that when we initially brought this plan through, if you'd go back and look at my presentation, we were very specific in that part of this project is somewhat the uniformity of the architecture. We're trying to hit specific price points. And so, this home and this development is looked at from every cost basis there is. And so every time we start to add elements to, whether it be the requirements of the development or the architecture, then we just start increasing, and we feel that the price point, again, just to reiterate, we're shooting for that $225 to $275 price range, and we've got a specific target market that and I won't go back and redo my entire presentation, but where I'm going with this is that we had full intent all along to work with the city to try to provide some diversity. And masonry was something that they brought to our attention. The problem was that word "all," and it was never our intent to not appeal that word. And the problem was, we knew we were going to add masonry, to add some architectural features that provided diversity, okay? The intent was just not to add masonry on all of them, because then we kind of lose the intent of what we're trying to do, which is add diversity to the architecture. So, unfortunately, through the process of Planning Commission and then City Council, I did not direct that exact criteria or condition specifically. I touched in it very broadly in my presentation. Otherwise, we would have had this conversation the first time around. And so then, after the fact, it became set in stone that it all had to have masonry. And then again, I feel like we kind of missed on what we were trying to do in working with the city and adding the different elements, the shutters. And unfortunately, the display here, the screen doesn't do justice to our color palette. There's a black and white version that actually shows some of the features that were added in terms of garage door style, glass, front door, coach lights versus garage lights. And I know all of those things seem small, but they actually do provide the diversity as well as the landscaping that'll be added to the plans. So, council member, I think we had this conversation originally. You posed that question about staggering the homes. Part of the orientation of these homes is directed by the topography of the project or of the land. So obviously, as the street rises, then garage are typically on the high side of the street. So we don't have any plans to, the topography of the road will dictate where the garages go. The staggering the back and forth, we don't really feel that, again, this is just in our opinion, that again, all we're doing is in some instances we're adding a foot or 2 foot of concrete in front. And I don't know that we're getting that benefit because again, we feel that the uniformity of the architecture is part of the concept of this project. Okay? So, well, that's a very valid and good point. It's just not one that we feel is appropriate for this area. And we'll all have an opinion and agree or disagree, but we've done a lot of research on this and this is what we want to present. So anyway, I'll answer questions. I just wanted to clarify kind of how we got to where we are, and so.
Well, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
The brick or the stone in the front, originally, when you thought about it, because it was just the end of March when you got this approved.
Mm-hmm.
Was it your intent to have at first all of them until you realized that, well, maybe we won't because it's going to cost? Or it was not your intent at all?
Our intent was not to have any.
But it was just a few weeks or so ago that was approved.
And I'm sorry, what is your question?
Then I gather you didn't want it all, but you did get it approved as all.
That's correct, and that's why I said it was a mistake on my part. The word "all" was fairly overlooked on my part.
Okay, so my other question is, couldn't you have them all have some up to like 3 or 4 feet, and then if it's a build job, or the buyer wants to buy it and it's not completed on the outside, they could pay for the difference to go up and around. Go up and around the garage. That way you would only your cost basis would only be a certain amount on every one of them, and they get to pick it.
And
then it would meet the all.
It's a great point, and we certainly will be offering our customers options, but we want our base price to reflect the true base price, which is without the masonry, because again, it's a cost element that's added. So that'll be the minority of the plans that are in the area, because we've already agreed that the majority of them will have masonry, some level of masonry. But we want to hit the low price point. And if we add masonry on every single plan, then our price point just rose. And again, I would argue that if that's a design element to be added as a variation, then putting it on every plan, is it still a variation? I mean,
okay, the 3 to 4 feet though, what I'm talking about is like $15 to $20 a square foot about. So you're looking at about, what, $1,000 per house?
Could be, yeah.
But it makes it more first impression attractive, and then they get to choose the brick, and then you meet your all.
Well,
and it's what is $1,000 if they're spending $225,000 on a house?
One could argue that someone may think it's more attractive without the stone. I mean, again, that is certainly it's just a variation of opinion.
Well, I'm just asking.
No, and it's a great question.
I know it's going to be your bottom line is that you're also wanting to keep it and not have to pay for that as well.
Do what?
Well, you're not wanting to spend it on every one of the houses, so I know your bottom line that you're looking at.
Sure, we're wanting to get our base model as inexpensive as possible, because that's what we want to be able to offer. If customers choose their options, then sure. But keep in mind that the majority of these homes, and I won't go to a percentage, because I don't know, but it's a very high percentage, will be based on will be built on speculation. So we're going to dictate, how many of each one of these homes are out there. We're going to have so much of this base and so much of this base.
Well, aren't you going to build so many and then just stop at a certain point so they can pick their own colors?
No,
You're going to build them out
we build them out
and then build them and then sell them.
and then sell them.
And they can't pick anything out at all.
If they want to build one, they can.
Oh, I know, but
But, I mean, and again, I say that in definite terms. It depends at what point of that home, but we're very specific. So once that home has gone through our architectural and our design, everything is set on it when it starts. Colors, interior, exterior. And it takes a pretty big act to change those. So, but you have to understand that's the way we do 80% of our homes now, even the ones that are, over 500,000.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm hogging the mic.
I have a question
Yes.
for you. It looks like the ones on the bottom where the masonry goes up just halfway, you have shutters.
Correct.
The next row up where the masonry goes all the way around the garage door, no shutters there. And then lights are added to the ones without any masonry. But I see one on the second row that does have lights. So what makes that one without stand out differently? Is it the lighting around the garage?
And I'm sorry, which one are you
A.
referring to?
It's A, I believe.
Well, A has no masonry, but it has lights on the garage door. And I was wondering if it was the lights on the homes without masonry is what was you were making it stand out with the lights.
Change. Yeah, correct. It's a change from the other
It
elevations.
is a change.
Yes.
However, if you look on the second row, B, it has it all the way around and it has lights. Do you see that one?
That's
B on the second
B
row,
over to the right,
far right.
second right.
So I didn't
Second
know
row.
what made those houses without the masonry stand out. If it was the lights, why did that one that has it all the way around the garage also have it?
That's a B.
Sure.
I can speak to that.
Oh, you'll need to be sworn in.
Okay.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you will state your name and your address.
Valerie Gindelsberger, 10408 Outlook Drive, Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay, would you spell your last name?
Gindlesberger.
Thank you.
And who are you with?
I'm with Summit Homes.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify a little bit the differences between the tiers, if you will. The first row is defined as the stagecoach. The letters that you see there are actually defining the color palettes that I used just for rendering purposes. So the second tier is the ones that all have masonry surrounding the garage, but that very last elevation, because it does not have an eave overhanging the garage, there's no place for can lights that would go in those eaves typically, because there would still be can lights to highlight where the address numbers would be. So since that one doesn't have those overhangs, it does get the coach lights anyway. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner?
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree. I don't think we're talking about much to stagger those houses. I do think it creates an interest. Even on a townhouse, we require that units in the row house, the attached housing, not all be the same, be a flat front. And so you don't look down that street and just see that straight line. You see some back and forth. I don't think that creates, I think that creates interest. I don't think it bothers I don't remember the words you used, but the uniformity to me is not a selling feature.
And Commissioner, I can appreciate that, but we got to address this, and then we'll come to a 6. Because they want us to close the public hearing on this, and then we'll address number 6, and your question will be answered then.
Okay.
Okay? So if you'll wait just a moment. Thank you. Commissioner, let's stay, we're on the changing of the masonry. That's what we're on right now.
Yes. Basically, I see 3 distinct exterior floor plans. Well, not floor plans, exterior models. The only thing that's varying those is the color palette. And I think there were 6 color palettes. But there's a lot of different colors available in brick or stone. And I think that we should stick with our original requirement on each unit.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? All right. Did the applicant have anything more they wanted to share? Okay. Now I'll call for anybody that's wanting to speak in favor. Anyone speaking in opposition? Okay. Is there any other general discussion? I'm going to close the public hearing. And we're going to have I'd like to entertain a motion on the public hearing amendment to the amended plan unit development. But before we do, I'm in consensus that just to put it on record, not too long ago, we approved it, and the city council accepted that you accepted it to be all. So that's just my feelings and my comment as far as a commissioner and making a recommendation to the city council, since it's not been that long ago that it was not approved that way, and they approved it. So with that, I will close my mouth and I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I
Commissioner?
move that amendment to the amended planned unit development concept plan, PUDC 04196884 for Edgewater at Chapman Farms, be approved as submitted by staff with the 3 conditions.
Okay,
Second?
we have a second. Roll call, please.
Planning Commissioner Cradoff.
Aye.
Commissioner Casey. Aye. Commissioner Graham. Commissioner Graham.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairbanks.
No.
Commissioner Peel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stokenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Haney.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillips.
Aye.
Chairman Banks.
No. Okay, that motion carried. That will be brought again in front of the city council May the 6th at 6 p.m. And our recommendation will go to them on that. So now we'll go ahead and finish 6. Since that was a part of it, and we've heard it, plan unit development, the final plan. And if there's any comments that would like to be made on that one, Mr. Billups, Commissioner Billups, your comment on the staggering is brought back up at the point.
I didn't say this before. I would like to say I love the color palettes. I love the fact that we're not all browns and all grays. I love having the red and the yellow. I'd love to put a blue in there too, just because that's my color. But I like having all the different color palette, and I think that does add some interest, and I hope the people take advantage of the fact that they can get houses that aren't just brown and gray. And I think even though you've shown them this way, if somebody wanted the design that had the eaves and still wanted the lights on the side of the garage, I'm sure you'd accommodate them, for a price and all that sort of thing. But they can't go back later and decide they want their house to be 5 foot further back off the street. They can change a color, they can change a light, they can't do that. I really think that's important. Even on a townhouse, on everything we do anymore, we just don't want that straight line going across there. I can't say it strong enough. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see that straight line across there. And if we're on a spot where the terrain is relatively flat and you can go, maybe not every other house has to be flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop.
But, stick one in there once in a while that's the other way around, just so that it's not quite so boom, 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 boom. You're already going to be building some with that, on the other way because of the differences in terrain. You're not adding any cost to do that. A couple of feet of concrete is not a big deal. And that's what I want to see.
This is what subdivisions look like, though.
Well,
it's easy, less concrete.
That's what they, we're already compromising on lot size and closeness together and that sort of thing. Let's give them at least a little bit of back and forth flow so that everything's not exactly the same.
And I'm sure your comments are appreciated.
So
I really do. Okay, we need to get back to the final plan. That's what we're approving now. Are there any other comments?
Madam Chair, can we discuss the landscaping at this point? Okay.
That's not
this is
this point.
for the architecture only. Landscaping will come back with a second final plan in the future.
Okay. Thank you for asking. Okay. Anything else? All right. I would entertain a motion, since this is not a public hearing. I entertain a motion for the Edgewater Planned Unit Development Final Plan.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I move that the Planned Unit Development Final Plan, PUDF 04196883 for Edgewater at Chetman Farms be approved as submitted by staff with the 5 conditions.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Commissioner Cradle? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone say same sign as no? No. Okay. Yes, me. Okay. All right, that motion carried, and that will also be, it's been approved by the commission. Okay. Now we're going to go to item number 2, and we'll hear
3.
Well, actually 3. Sorry, I said 2, 3. Thank you. And we'll hear 7 and 8 together. So I'll open the public hearing for conditional use permit for Verdad Self-Storage and ask for the city attorney to read the exhibits.
Madam Chairman, I offer the following exhibits into the record. Exhibit 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on April 6, 2019. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. And 7, Title 4, Land Use Section, Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by references. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
All right, thank you, Chairman Banks and Commissioners. Before this evening are 3 requests related to VRE Self-Storage, which is a 99,000 square foot residential warehouse storage facility at 715 Southwest 7 Highway. The property, which is on the screen, is located immediately north of the Quick Trip at 40 and 7 Highways, and was rezoned in February to RC Regional Commercial with the intent at that time of developing a self-storage facility. The first request is for a conditional use permit to allow the proposed use to operate on the subject property. And then the second request is for the site plan design review. The proposed site plan, which is on the screen, includes a single building with an access drive and parking around the perimeter of the site. The site does meet all of the minimum area, coverage, height, and setback requirements for the general commercial building type. Access to the site will be provided at the southeast corner of the site, 7 Highway, through the Quick Trip property, and then to the north into the parking lot. It is a shared access drive with Quick Trip, and when Quick Trip was constructed in 2016 and platted, there is already an access easement there that was put in place at that time for the development. So no additional easements will need to be granted to this property. A traffic study has been provided confirming that the site has adequate access for the traffic demand for the site, which is anticipated to generate 50 vehicle trips per day. which consists of 25 total vehicles, the 50 trips including trips going in and out. So 25 vehicles total is the projected number of vehicles that will enter and exit the site on a daily basis. Based on the square footage of the facility, however, the site is required 74 parking spaces. The applicant is requesting a reduction through a Schedule C parking study to only provide 42 parking spaces with the justification that was outlined in a parking memo that was included in the packet. Staff does believe that the requested reduction is warranted and still provides more spaces than the total number of customers that are anticipated on the site at any given day. A bike rack has also been provided up at the front corner of the building near the main office entrance for employees or customers who may be bringing small items by bike to the facility. The site also does meet all the pedestrian access requirements, including sidewalks along the main building entrance. Public sidewalk along 7 Highway will also have a sidewalk connection to the main entrance. A landscape plan has been submitted with the site plan. The landscape plan does provide a significant buffer edge to screen the parking areas from Southwest 7 Highway. There's a solid row of evergreen shrubs along the entire frontage, along with the shade trees that serve as street trees for the site. There's also substantial landscaping around the perimeter of the building between the access drive and the building wall. Overall, the site does exceed the minimum plant unit requirements for the site. On the landscape plan that was provided, get to the screen here. The site is required 820 plant units. They have currently 1,010 plant units that would be new to the site. However, on the west buffer adjacent to Fike, they were short 89 plant units. As the time of the landscape submittal, they had not done a tree study for preserving the existing trees. There is quite a substantial amount of existing trees on that west buffer that they can take advantage of. Staff did make the condition, however, that at least 89 plant units be preserved in that west buffer of existing trees, or 89 new plant units be planted, or a mix thereof of existing and new, which would be reviewed through the building permit plans. Since the publishing of the agenda, the applicant did complete a tree study, which indicates that there are nearly 2,000 tree credits available in the west buffer. So staff believes they will more than meet that buffer requirement. In terms of the building design, again, it's a 99,000 square foot building, a single one building, 3 stories. There will be 739 individual storage units within the building. 722 of those are accessed internally. There are an additional 17 that are accessed through the back side of the building. So there's 17 garage doors on the back for larger storage that would more than likely be vehicles. Building materials meet the building design requirements. They provide a mix of stone, veneer, cement board siding, as well as pre-finished corrugated metal paneling and siding. The overall design is compatible with the surrounding developments, which is a mix of commercial and industrial uses, and also gives the appearance of an office building. Facades most visible to 7 Highway and 40 Highways, which are the 2 on the screen. The the top elevation, which is the south elevation, is what would be visible from behind Quick Trip if you're looking at it from 40 Highway. And then the east elevation is what you would see on 7 Highway. You can see that they provided a lot of windows and a mix of building materials there to give it more of an office building appearance. It also appears that all screening requirements will be met on the site, and those details will be reviewed with the building permit plans. The final request is for a final plat for extra space 7 Highway storage. which covers a single lot, 2.94 acre property. This lot was included as Lot 3 in the Quick Trip preliminary plat from 2015. And this would be the final lot to be final platted from that preliminary plat. The first was Quick Trip, the second was Tidal Wave, and this would finish that preliminary plat. The limits of no access has been delineated along 7 Highway. As I mentioned, all access will be through the Quick Trip property. They also required a minimum 5-foot sidewalk along Southwest 7 Highway. Must be 6 feet if curb abutting, and that is required to be installed prior to occupancy for the building. All utilities are present except for water, which will need to be extended from the east side of 7 Highway on the Hy-Vee side. And then the final plat must be approved and recorded at Jackson County prior to the issuance of any building permits for the property. Staff does believe that the project does meet the 10 review criteria in the conditional use permit review criteria, as all the zoning district standards have been met, as well as all the site design standards have been met. There are also no specific use standards for residential warehouse storage in the UDC, so that would not apply to the property or use. Staff also believes that the 5 review criteria for the site plan design review have been met, including compliance with all UDC requirements. The property is not part of any overlay districts or any special design districts, so none of that would apply. And lastly, staff does believe that all 6 review criteria for the final plat have been met and is in substantial compliance with the previously approved preliminary plat for Quick Trip. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit for VRE self-storage with 2 conditions, approval of the site plan design review with 9 conditions, and the final plat for Extra Space 7 Highway with 3 conditions. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is probably very simple. There's a triangular piece of land from 7 Highway to the eastern side of this property. Who owns that and who maintains it?
All of that out there is in the right-of-way for 7 Highway. That is just part of the slope that MoDOT maintains, but it would be the property owner's responsibility to keep that mowed and cleaned.
So the property owner, even though they don't own it, it's just a right?
Correct. Yeah, I think that they might have done that just to protect the railroad overpass, because there's something similar on the other side with Hy-Vee.
Okay. The other question that I have, there is another self-storage facility on 40 Highway, just about 19th Street. And the other day I was going east and there was a semi-trailer that was trying to back in that location to unload some items. I'm concerned that that driveway on 7 Highway would not be compatible for a semi-trailer to navigate. Is there another entrance off of 40 Highway that type of vehicle could use?
I'll let the engineers here for the applicant. He may be able to answer that. They did a traffic study on that. I don't know if they looked at that large of vehicles. Typically, I don't think with these kind of storage facilities, you'd probably see more of a standard size U-Haul, but not a full semi driving through there. The main and only point of access is 7 Highway. In some cases, they potentially could use the access drive out and that will be in front of Tidal Wave and through Quick Trip. That would be an option for a larger vehicle like that. But
I was thinking, if someone is moving in from out of state, out of town or whatever, they're gonna have a truckload of furniture. And if they are building a house, they're not gonna have the ability to move the furniture in, and they'll need temporary storage.
And I believe
that's what was happening on 40 Highway when I happened along.
And I believe that the Quick Trip gas vehicles come in from that access drive. So if the gas tanker trucks can make it through there, the semi should as well. And there is circular access around the entire building, so they should be able to just loop around without having to back in or out of the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner?
Is there any fencing that encompasses this facility? And do you anticipate any traffic problems with the two businesses there?
They are not required any fencing, nor are they planning on putting any. Since everything is interior, they don't need security like some of the other storage facilities typically have. In terms of traffic, a traffic study was done. As I mentioned, only would generate about 25 vehicles a day. So that's very low for this area, so it would not be an issue with the quick trip traffic. Most of the traffic along 40 Highway is exiting out of 40 Highway, since the 7 Highway is primarily the main entrance, or if you're leaving to go south. So there's not going to be a lot of traffic conflict at that point of access.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward? You need to be sworn in.
I do. Good evening, Ron Cowker, AGC Engineers, 405 South Leonard, Liberty, Missouri, here tonight on behalf of Verdad Real Estate. Thank you very much. Fantastic questions. I'd like to start out by apologizing on behalf of Verdad. They have to get on airplanes and travel, and they felt like we had worked extensively with staff, and I want to publicly recognize your staff that you have, because we do a lot of work throughout the city, and these poor guys probably wanted to block my emails sometimes because I would send them multiple emails in the course of a day. But the beauty of that is we got quick answers, and then we can respond to those and have a more cohesive project if we don't have to wait. So kudos to them. The truck question is a fantastic question. The Quick Trip issue, Quick Trip actually owns this property and are selling it to Verdad. They are very protective of their property and their operation. Their primary operation is a convenience store, gas station convenience store, and getting rid of the surplus property is not their number one priority. So they feel very comfortable with the comings and goings of Verdad. As Mr. Wright had indicated, 25 vehicles is all we anticipate coming and going. From a larger truck standpoint, we have run extensive models of that site to see how the comings and goings of that go. Passenger cars, obviously, no problem. The U-Haul size vehicle, we call those SU40s. A 40-foot van type vehicle, no problem coming in and out of 7 Highway. And up to about a WB50 can make it in there without any problem. Anything over that, like an interstate type truck, starts to be difficult to get into that 7 Highway. Quick Trip, I think, has recognized that in the event that something like that size comes in, they can pass through their lot, but they don't want to make that carte blanche approval to let semis drive through their lot all the time. But they are very aware, the Quick Trip folks are very aware that a large over-the-road semi, which I might add, in the business plan, we do not feel like that is the lion's share of our business. But it only, as you had indicated, it only takes that one that has to back in. So we feel like that we can utilize the Quick Trip property to navigate that. And there again, we're not going to be marketing to that type of client, that type of user. But albeit, there will be the occasional time that there will be a semi there. I think there was a fencing question. I think Mr. Wright answered that appropriately. No fencing on the site. The sites, these buildings are so much different than the old tin can buildings that we used to see with a bunch of roll-up doors. Secured two points of entry, secured access. actually, there's a lockout point that even if I have a unit rented in the facility, there's a time that I can't even key in and out to go drop my stuff off. And those times are
10 p.m. to something, right?
6 a.m. So I can access my unit from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. But if I come at 5:30 a.m. or at 10:10, the card key doesn't read any longer. There will be an attendant on site Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays, 9:30 to 5:30. Sunday, there will not be an attendant on site. The lighting on these facilities is so much better than the little nooks and crannies that you used to get with self-storage. So with that, I will shut up and answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question regarding the west buffer for the tree line.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an idea of how many of those existing plant units you plan to preserve at this time, or are you still looking at that?
We intend to preserve all of those. That is certainly the intent. Now, to say that one or two trees might not have to come out, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, there's an environmental concern on sites. That may be why you saw some, if you went by the site recently, we came in and cut down some of the trees and ground them up. The reason for that is there are protected bats that if we didn't, and not to say that there were any bats on the piece of property, but if the trees don't come down prior to April 1st, then we have to conduct a bat study that becomes a $10,000 line item just to see whether there's bats or not on the property. Mm-hmm. So we chose to go ahead and get rid of the trees that we knew had to go away. So we feel, to answer your question a little bit more direct, we feel that certainly the lion's share of those are going to remain.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? In opposition? Okay, I'll bring it up here. Any other further discussion?
Madam Chair. Just a kind of general discussion question. We've had a couple storage facilities like this come in where they've had requests for reduced parking. And so I kind of just wanted to throw out the question, is that something we should be looking at codifying maybe, or so that we have some kind of standard on what we could expect for facilities like this in the future?
Well, this one I can understand too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to answer your question, Commissioner, yes, I do believe that is something that it's on our list of many of the uses in our UDC under the parking requirements based upon specific uses. Most of those that are contained within the code are probably the original parking standards from the code back in the 1950s or 60s. And so we anticipate over the next year or so doing a comprehensive look at all of the different parking requirements in the UDC, and that's certainly one of them, especially with the changing business model as we're being told by these storage unit operators that the parking requirements that we have just aren't simply relevant anymore in terms of how they're calculated based upon square feet or number of bays anymore. That's just not how they're operated anymore. People don't just pull up in front of their little garage door and then go on their way. A lot of them are internally situated doors and things like that. So yeah, that's definitely one of the uses that we'll be looking at. And typically speaking, when any like a board of adjustment, when we start to see a pattern of specific variance requests that tend to be the same one over and over again, that's a very good indication that there could be something that we need to address at the code level. So I very much appreciate that comment.
Yeah, it does seem like a pattern that's coming up more.
Well, the model's so different than where we were years ago that I can see that we might need to make changes. Because these models are so much nicer and But they're different.
They're different.
need.
You know. Yeah, and just the evolution of how businesses operate, and this being one of those, then that's usually a time to look at updating our code is when we start to see multiple requests for the similar reduced amount of parking or a variance or something to that effect. So
Everybody has different needs, so thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions? Another comment?
Yeah, I have a question. I think we recently, on the news in the Kansas City metro area, actually had a family living in one of these type units. What procedure do you have in place to prohibit something like that occurring?
Well, I don't know that this is where, I don't know. I better consult with council. If we get into this, this is just a plan. That's not the criteria for what we're voting on.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I'm sure that they would have to pay and have a key card, so I don't know. They'll probably have to work that out. So, right now, we're just doing sticking with the conditional use permit and plans. Okay, anything else? Thank you, though, for your comments. Okay.
Well, it would be a condition that they not use it as a housing unit.
Well, I think that I think they're aware of that. Okay. I've already called for people in favor of general discussion, so I'll close the public hearing. And I would entertain a motion for first the public hearing conditional use for gosh. That's yours.
Yes.
You leave it alone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Turn it on.
I forgot. You have to do roll call. I need a motion, though.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I move that conditional use permit CUP 03196875 for Verdot self-storage be approved as submitted by staff with the 2 conditions.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
Planning Commissioner Casey.
Aye.
Commissioner Graham.
Aye.
Commissioner Fairbanks.
Aye.
Commissioner Peel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stokenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Haney.
Aye. I didn't hear.
Commissioner Billups.
Aye.
Didn't sound like it.
Commissioner Cradoff.
Aye.
Chairman Banks.
Aye. Okay, that motion carried. Thank you. Now we'll go ahead, since we're on this, and we'll vote on items 7 and then 8. So I'll need a motion for the site plan design review for Dodd self-storage.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I move the site plan design review SPDR 03196877 for Verdot self-storage be approved as submitted by staff with the 9 conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second, Commissioner Casey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Site plan and design review's been approved. I will entertain a motion for the final plat. And that's Extra Space Highway 7.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I move that final plat PF 03196876 for Extra Space Highway 7 be approved as submitted by staff with the 3 conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Casey? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the final plat for Extra Space has been approved. That does go to the City Council May the 6th at 6 p.m. So, all right. Now we will go on to, I'll open the public hearing for Blue Springs Marine for the rezoning. I mean, we're going to do these separate. 4 and 5 will be separate, okay? And I would ask the city attorney to read the exhibits.
Madam Chairman, I offer the following exhibits into the record. Exhibit 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on April 6, 2019. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section, Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Jury?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Planning Commission. Before you today is a request by the applicant, Alan Johnson, on behalf of the property owner, Rand Investment Associates, LLC, to rezone a property at 3200 Northwest Jefferson Street from GB, what it is currently, to the RC, or Regional Commercial Zoning District. The property is on the south side of Jefferson Street, between Jefferson and Interstate 70, about 1,300 feet east of Northwest Woods Chapel. It's a 3-acre property, approximately, and currently there is the existing Blue Springs Marine business on this property, as you can see in this aerial photo here. The requested zoning, a little bit of background, I guess. In 1997, conditional use permit was approved to allow Blue Springs Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge to conduct a vehicle equipment sales and vehicle repair use in the GB zoning district, which was allowed at the time. However, in 2000, City Council did alter the use table and added the RC zoning district and pulled out the vehicle sales use from the GB zoning and placed it into that RC regional commercial zoning district, and thus at that point making the existing use non-conforming use, even though it had an approved CUP on the property. So today, Blue Springs Marine is requesting to rezone this property so that their existing use complies with the zoning of RC and may remain as allowed and approved under the original conditional use permit from 1997, since they are not changing any use. As staff recommendations based on the review criteria, I'll show the zoning table. Try and find it here. And show you some of the uses that are, some of the general uses that are allowed in the RC zoning district. The requested zoning is appropriate, as I mentioned. Outdoor sales and service of equipment is allowed with the conditional use, which they have had previously in the RC zoning district, as highlighted here. Also, there are the existing general commercial building is allowed by right in the RC zoning district as well. Based on their current existing use and building, the RC zoning district is appropriate for what they want to do. Staff does believe that the requested use, or the requested zoning district, meets the intent of the comprehensive plan, also furthers the purpose of the RC zoning district, and the property can meet all development standards as laid out in the UDC for the RC zoning district as well. Also, staff believes the request, one of the other review criteria for rezonings, staff believes the request to rezone to the RC zoning district is consistent with the character of the adjacent zoning districts. You can see this does follow a pattern of rezoning to RC. There's some to the east and some to the west, a few properties over that have already been, since 2000, been rezoned to RC. This zoning district or rezoning is justified based on the actions by council back in 2000, and it is consistent with other adopted policies of the city. And lastly, staff does recommend approval of this rezoning request from GB to RC, and believes it meets all the review criteria of a rezoning request. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much. Would the applicant like to come forward?
I do. Alan Johnson Design, 700 West 47th Street, Suite 200, Kansas City, Missouri, 64112.
Thank you.
We are in support of the staff recommendation for rezoning, so I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you. You may be back. All right, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? In opposition? Seeing none, I'd bring it back forward. Is there any other comments or discussion? All right, I'll close the public hearing. I'd entertain a motion for the public hearing rezoning Blue Spring Marine.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner,
I move that rezoning request RZ 03196853 for Blue Springs Marine be approved as submitted by staff.
do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second? Susan. Okay, roll call, please.
Planning Commissioner Graham,
Aye.
Commissioner Fairbanks,
Aye.
Commissioner Peel,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stokenberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Haney,
Aye.
Commissioner Billups,
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Casey,
Aye.
Chairman Banks.
Aye. Motion carried. That will go before the City Council on May the 6th at 6 p.m. So our recommendation will go to them. All right, now I will open the public hearing for the conditional use permit and ask the city attorney to read the exhibits.
Madam Chairman, I offer the following exhibits into the record. Exhibit 1, staff report with attachments. 2, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on April 6, 2019. 3, application with attachments. 4, 185-foot notification map. 5, names and addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site. 6, copy of the letter sent to said property owners. 7, Title IV Land Use Section Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference. And 8, 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will go over the conditional use and I'll review the site plan design review as well in this presentation, since they cover the same property.
Thank you.
Today, Alan Johnson again, the applicant for the Blue Springs Marine expansion on the property adjacent to the 3200 Northwest Jefferson. So this property is now at the undeveloped property is 3180 Northwest Jefferson Street. It's again between Jefferson and Interstate 70, about 1,500 feet east of Northwest Woods Chapel now. And about 2.39 acres is the property size. It is zoned RC, as it was rezoned previously when a dealership was looking at this site back in the 90s. But today, the Blue Springs Marine is looking at expanding and building a 9,700 approximately square foot building for the service and sales of boats and marine vessels on the property. They are looking to get a conditional use permit approved for that use for the outdoor sales and service of equipment, in this case being boats and marine vessels. There are a few review criteria for conditional use for this outdoor sales and service of equipment. One of those being the paving material, which they have met that requirement for the paving, as you can see in the detail here on the page. They also have met the paving setback. A 25-foot setback is required from the street, and they have met it from Interstate as well as Jefferson. They have proposed a different parking arrangement because of the use between the two sites, the subject site that we're looking at, as well as the existing Blue Springs Marine. They are proposing to share parking since they will control after ownership changes. They will control have a majority control between the two sites. And there will be a shared parking agreement between the proposed site and the existing Blue Springs Marine. And I'll go over it in a little bit based on looking at those numbers and how that all shakes out. But staff does believe that as part of the conditional use standards for this use, they do meet our UDC requirements for that. Another use another standard that we'll look at as the conditional use is that The summation of the widths of driveway approaches shall not exceed 20% of the property. And they are showing, excuse me, they are showing on this property that they'll share the access with the existing Blue Springs Marine property, but they do have a potential driveway cut on Jefferson Street. They are not proposing to install this at this point, but if they ever do sell this property separately to a different user, that future user could install that driveway in this location in the northeast corner of the site, and that does meet the use standards for outdoor vehicle sales. Additionally, there's noise requirements that outdoor speakers are not used, and they have complied with that. And also the vehicle repair service bays can't face the right-of-way. And when you're in between two streets, that is a little bit more difficult, but they do have vehicle service bays on the east and the west side of the building rather than the north and south, which would be the facing Jefferson or Interstate 70. So they do comply with that. As far as the use standards outlined in the UDC, staff does believe that they have complied with all of the conditional use standards and recommends approval with 3 conditions on that. As far as the site plan design review, I'll go over into a little bit more detail on what we look at for the site plan design review itself. The 9,700 square foot building does meet all the setbacks and size, height, building massing requirements. As you can see here, the vehicle access, as I mentioned previously, will work through the existing site, accessing Jefferson and cutting through to the shared driveway between the two. No public road improvements are required on this site plan design review, since the additional improvements or the use do not warrant any additional improvements to the existing road based on MoDOT and Public Works requirements. As far as the parking, I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. So based on the proposed development, they are showing a total requirement of 33 spaces at minimum, and 42 spaces would be the most parking that the UDC allows them to put on site. They are proposing only 2 spaces, the 2 being the handicap spaces as required. There will be space for 77 total cars on the lot, so if they ever do sell, there is enough space on the property to accommodate any parking as necessary for that use, but they are proposing to share parking between the existing development and this new development. So this table on the screen shows what is required based on the existing building on the separate property, as well as the additional on this 5th row, the shared spaces with adjacent lot. That shows what's required on the proposed building. So all in all, 93 spaces at minimum and 121 spaces at max. And both lots combined, they have enough spaces for their sales areas dedicated for the sale of boats or possibly the service of boats and keeping customer boats and marine vessels, as well as providing enough spaces for their employees as well as the required spaces for customers, showing that 93 spaces is their required and proposed on-site parking. As far as pedestrian access, I'll go over. Our UDC does require pedestrian access to be provided at the same rate as vehicle access. And in this instance, since they are providing only providing one driveway between the existing and the proposed lot. There is a pedestrian path between the two buildings. If this driveway on Jefferson is ever proposed to the northeast corner of this site, there is a space that they have shown that pedestrians can also access from the public sidewalk to the main entrance. But until that future driveway is installed, code does not require that pedestrian access to be installed. For the landscaping of this site, the applicant is asking for a alternative compliance landscape plan. They meet all of the total landscape units required on site. The only places that they are devoid, they are providing some landscaping on the west buffer, but they are short 65 plant units. Their reasoning behind that is that it is a shared, currently it is a shared property line between their two businesses, and they'll utilize this site and the adjacent site as one in essence. So they are requesting a reduction on the west buffer, and they also provide less parking lot landscaping than required as well. But they make up for that, and they meet the total landscape plant units required on the entire site as a whole. As far as the building design, mainly the building will match the existing building for Blue Springs Marine on the adjacent site. They are providing some concrete masonry units along the base and going up a little bit on the front and back side or the north and south sides of the building. You can see some of this concrete masonry coming up, providing a little bit of variation in the building and material, as well as protecting the building from wayward boats, I assume. It is a 24 gauge white metal siding with split face CMU around the base of the building, and the garage doors and light windows will provide some variation in and some light through that building as well. All in all, some of the public improvements required. The sidewalk will be required along Jefferson to connect to the adjacent properties. Storetropolises will be going in whenever they develop as well, to the east of here. Stormwater study must be approved by Public Works prior to building permit issuance, and prior to occupancy, the actual improvements must be installed. I will mention that this property has been platted. However, it appears that there has been an illegal subdivision on this property, and it's about 7 feet off of what was platted when it was originally platted. So in order to rectify that, just a minor lot line adjustment needs to be submitted to staff, approved at staff level, which minor lot line adjustments, especially when you're just moving a lot line 7 feet over, which is the case in this instance, can be approved administratively, and staff would request that be approved prior to building permit issuance, so that the lot lines are all in order and in place and recorded at the county. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit with 3 conditions, and also the site plan design review with 3 conditions as well. And I'll stand for any questions.
Is there any questions for staff? Commissioner?
Just a clarification. I think you said that Storetropolis was actually going to be east of there?
Yes, it's the property, when they came through previously, yes, it's the property just to the east. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to come forward again? You've already been sworn in.
We're in support of the staff report and their conditions, so I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Glad to have you expanded. Thanks. Guess not. All right, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Conditional use permit? And what about in opposition? Hearing none, I'll close the hearing. And I would entertain a motion for the public hearing conditional use of Blue Springs Marine.
Madam Chair,
I'm paying you down there. No, I'm only
I
kidding.
move that the conditional use permit CUP 03196858 for Blue Springs Marine be approved as submitted with the 3 conditions.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Susan. All right, roll call, please.
Planning Commissioner Fairbanks.
Aye.
Commissioner Peel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stokenberry.
Aye.
Commissioner Haney.
Aye.
Commissioner Billups.
Aye.
Commissioner Cradoff.
Aye.
Commissioner Casey.
Aye.
Commissioner Graham.
Aye.
Chairman Banks.
Aye. Okay, that motion carried. I would entertain a motion for the site plan and design review for also Blue Springs Marine.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I move that site plan design review SPDR 03196859 for Blue Springs Marine be approved as submitted by staff with the 3 conditions.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the site plan design review for Blue Springs Marine has been approved, so we are glad to have them stay and expand here. So, any other business?
Yes, I'd like to, a couple items. Next scheduled meeting is Monday, May 13th. We do have some agenda items coming forward that night. One of which will likely be proposed UDC text amendments related to medical marijuana. And along that same line, I would like, based upon the public comment we had at the last Planning Commission meeting, to let you all know that the City Council will be having a work session on Monday, April 29th, to discuss the zoning and the land use implications of having medical marijuana uses in the city. That will be over at the Jernigan Room. At, I believe, 6 o'clock. And while there will be no public comment at that meeting, the public is invited to attend if they want to learn more about how the city is thinking about implementing the rules that have come down from the state and how they would be applied through the city in terms of zoning districts and separations between uses and things of that nature, so that it would be a work session that staff and council will be having on the 29th.
Okay. Very good. Any other business? Commissioner?
I'd like to say that I did appreciate the meeting recap that we had last meeting. I think that's a great idea.
The training that we had? Or
the meeting recap where it said this is the actions that were taken.
Oh, okay, I understand. Thank you. That is good. And I would like to compliment our staff for the hours that you all put in. Because, I mean, all the meetings you have to attend and all the things and the attorney and everything that you all have to do, I really appreciate somebody from the public coming and letting us know how much, because we do realize how much you do, even though we might not say that all the time. So we want to make it public. All right? So thank you. Okay, any other business? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Good night.